Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's Wendy Sellers, the HR lady. Thanks for coming. I'm so excited about our topic today. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of things, but start out talking about digital transformation in HR. And we are here today with a multi-award winning chief executive of Performance Works International, Jeremy Blain. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, Wendy. Thank you very much for having me, coming to you from the UK
Yes. Wow. What a time difference. I'm so glad we were able to get together. And so you do work in UK and Asia, correct?
and the US. Yes,
And the US as well.
actually, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we got everything covered here. Tell our listeners just a little bit about your background so they understand why you're the expert they need to hear from.
Well, my business operates at the intersection between digital workforce and leadership transformation. So I've made it my business as a business leader, as well as a learning expert and human capital professional, to keep learning, if you like.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of research every year now because that's the speed of need to anticipate what are the big changes that are needed in business and across functions like HR, but also at leadership level. So it gives me a really good helicopter view of the organization, but also what is being missed in the organization. The preoccupation is digital transformation. But in some ways, digital transformation doesn't exist. It's much bigger than that. It's whole business model transformation. That includes the human side of things, and it includes those people who are supposed to be leading the implementation of the transformation, i.e. our C-suite and our advisors. So it's my life's work, really, across all of these in all parts of my career, but it's certainly where I focus now.
Wow. I love it. I mean, I think since the pandemic, let's face it, there was digital transformation and major changes needed in human resources, period, pre-pandemic. But I think the pandemic just made it happen because we were forced to make changes or not survive in business. And in fact, I got some statistics for that. A significant portion of organizations are actively pursuing digital transformation. I was just saying HR, but now you're saying everywhere, with many seeing the key driver as improving employee experience and talent acquisition. And I like to say talent retention. I think that's really in my life. I'm the HR lady, HR consultant, where I saw many people just saying we have to change. Why? Because employees are demanding it. And some of these statistics that I've looked up this morning, getting ready for our call, is 79% of companies reported accelerating transformation due to COVID. 49% expect HR to lead embedding a digital culture, which is interesting because not many people in the past, way past, were like, "Oh yeah, HR is going to take the ball and run with it," even though we're like, "Please give us the ball. We will love to take it." And then, there was some information from PwC's Digital HR Transformation Survey in 2022 that 96% of people believe HR's role is shifting once again towards employee experience design and talent development. And I, for one, am here for it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing I would say is that employees have more power than they ever have
Yeah.
in all of the industrial revolutions that we've seen. And that's not just about choice of the job I want, it's the choice of how I want to work. Digital is unleashing vast potential, whether I want to be an entrepreneur, a gigger, whether I want three jobs, whether also Generation Z want to come in and say, look, I don't want a career with you. I want 2 years of fulfilling work. Can you cope with that? And the answer often with legacy organizations is no,
Yep.
because the structure isn't being changed. And so I would like to say it as far as, instead of saying digital transformation, I would say transformation for a digital world, because I think
Yes.
that is more holistic, a phrase, if you like, as a capture-all. If we're to do that, we have to recognize that there's that huge human shift, as you've just pointed to there as well. So if you haven't got the people engaged, mobilized, action orientated, empowered behind the shift, then you're going to find it fails. And digital transformation fails, according to Forbes, Oracle, IBM, digital leadership specialists, 2 out of 3 times. In fact,
Right.
that mirrors the same amount of time strategies fail. Why does it fail? It fails through the implementation. And for digital transformation, the three key reasons why digital transformations fail. First, leadership mindset. And that mindset at the very top is, yeah, we need to do it right, go and do something, but not getting involved is no choice anymore. We have to be involved. Secondly, it's about culture needs to evolve at the same rate as the organizational shift and match into it. The third is it's not just digital, it's the whole business, as I talked about before. So I come back then to your point, Wendy, about HR. And for me, and I'm going to be a bit challenging here, I think it's time for HR, certainly some HR professionals to grow teeth again and to lead the charge, not wait to be asked. It's don't like come to us. It's like go and fight for it in the boardroom or the C-suite. Say you are missing a trick here. It's not just about the tech. It's about the people. And it's, by the way, about you leaders as well, needing to evolve your knowledge, skills and behaviors for a digital world in some. But I would also say for a lot of HR professionals, that's also true.
Yeah.
So the mindset shift has to happen at HR first. Then we need to get to action, proactive rather than reactive action.
Yeah, 100% agree. The old school HR needs to go away, period. That's all there is to it. If you're not ready to get up to where 2025 needs you, then you need to be in another role or maybe in a supportive role versus a leading role. So I want to go back real quickly and just, what do we mean by digital transformation? Is this just taking everything from a piece of paper and putting it into a PDF? Is this working remote? What the heck are we even talking about here?
Oh, you've asked the $64,000 question here. It's like, what is it? What is this big thing, this digital transformation? Digital transformation is fundamentally how do we service our customers and provide excellence in client experiences or journeys for the digital world. So using technology as an enabler, unleashing and unlocking the human touch so we can be with our customers more, customer first, but also do things more efficiently internally to help us do that. It's about customer first.
Yeah, it really does. And in a business, your customers are both your paying customers and your employees. Because without the employees helping each other, customers to each other, then we can't get the job done. And then that's why we have an unengaged workforce, right? That's
Yeah,
a new
yeah.
that's a new thing, right? Unengaged workforce, totally new.
Well, I'm not so sure. Having gone into the workplace in the '90s, I'm sure I was disengaged at times there as well. But yeah, you're right. But the thing is we've become too inside out in terms of thinking
Yep.
recently. So we need outside in thinking. So it's external client first. Then we understand what we need to do to be hyper competitive, to lead the market, to be innovators out there. Then we can look internally and think, so how do we take away the barriers so that our employees at all levels can be innovators, experimenters, they can spend more time with our clients, they can collaborate better, we can move away from supervision and much closer into coaching support, all of these kind of things. So it is a mix, but it's external first thinking, which is
I
the
lo-
success factor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we're not helping our customers, right, or even in the nonprofit world or the public, like the government world, if we're not helping the end customer, then what are we there for? And I see all too often that employees, and this is not their fault, it's the managers and the business leaders' fault. They don't really even know what the like mission, vision, values are of the company, right? They're like, I come to work and this is my job, and it's like, yeah, but do you know how your job, no matter how small or big, affects the end result? And not everybody does, because we're in such a fast-paced world that I hear business owners like, oh, they don't need to know that part. And it's like, well, why don't you let them decide what they need to know, right?
Yeah, and I did a piece of research called the Digital Leadership Perspective this year, and one thing that was really clear, there was an increase in digital detachment at senior leadership levels. And I include HR in that, by the way. It's the
Mhm.
leadership team at the very top of the organization are much further removed from the operational reality on the ground than many actually think. So they're looking at, the sun is up, beautiful green hills there, and yet you've got everybody in the organization saying, no, I can see loads of clouds and storms and all of those things there. And that detachment means that you've got almost two factions or two cliques within the organization. Employees saying they don't know what they're talking about, and the leaders of the company and the board thinking, yeah, we're going in the right direction, it's fine, everything's fine. So we need to close that gap. And the way to do it, actually, to come to what you just said there, Wendy, is probably actually moving away from what a traditional vision is all about. That if I talk about a vision statement of any company and I ask one of their customers to look at the vision statement, often it doesn't really mean much to them. Intellectually, they get it, of course, what it is, but to them, it's not something they can grab hold of. So what we argue is that what you need is a digital ambition, something that captures the imagination of the clients as well as your organization. And a great example of that was you mentioned that I work over in Asia. One of the large Asian banks called DBS, based in Singapore, operating from India to the Pacific, they've had a 10-year transformation journey, and it's ongoing, of course, transformation. But according to Harvard Business Review, that's one of the top 10 digital transformations in the world ever.
Wow.
DBS Bank. And what started it off, first of all, was leadership mindset. The leaders saying, we need to make some big bets. I'm not the smartest person in the room anymore. Were we ever as leaders? And we're going to need help. And therefore, we need something that means something to our clients, to our employees. So their digital ambition is make banking joyful, which
Mm.
is nothing to do with tech, but it's a philosophy, a mantra, a spirit, whatever you want to call it. But it does conjure up what would make me as a customer of a bank joyful? Well, I want an app that works. I don't want to queue up if I'm going to a bank. I want to get a mortgage easier. I want to do this. It's actually all a means to an end. All of that stuff should be invisible to me. So I
Yeah.
want an enabler, and that's where the tech comes in. And they've been one of the most successful banks in the world.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that because I was literally on my bank app this morning trying to do a transfer, and I was like, just words that came out of my mouth are not appropriate for this show right now because it was 100% and never has been an enjoyable experience. And then every time I go, you know what, I'm going to change banks, I'm like, oh, that just sounds like such a pain. And I haven't really found any other banks with great experience either. So I hear you and I feel you there. Hey, I want to ask you a question about, oh, I don't know, a book that you may have written. You are the author of a #1 bestseller, Unleash the Inner CEO. Talk to us about your book.
Yeah, well, in fact, and I don't mean to sound like I'm ultra prolific, but this year I've had that book out, which is the second edition of the first book called The Inner CEO. Then I've had another book called Open HR, has just been released, and another one coming in January.
Congratulations.
And another one in January called the Digital Leadership Playbook, which is about a guide for leaders and board for digital transformation. So when I talked about where I operate in the intersection between digital workforce and leadership transformation, there is essentially a book for each. I didn't mean that to happen, but it's kind of happened. So the first book, Unleash the Inner CEO, which I'm very proud to say has won Leadership Book of the Year this year at the Global Book Awards, which was a massive surprise, being that it's a second edition, but also being that for me, it's about 70% different to the first, because I'd learned over a 3-year period while implementing the models and tools and frameworks in the book, what worked, what didn't. I learned from clients who had different ideas, and it just got even better. And what that's saying is, in the context of what we've just been talking about, Wendy, is that one leader isn't enough. One CEO isn't enough. You need to curate the power and the potential of the many. So talent with a capital T should be banned. It's talent with a small t is the magic in organizations. Everybody has potential. Everybody can lead, whether that's in their role, whether it's as in their team, whether it's outside of their team, whether it's strategically. There are different ways of doing it, but a bold age of empowerment is what we need. But when I was writing that book, and you do your research out there is absolutely zero blueprint of how to do it out there. There are books on
Oh,
leadership, books on management, but nothing on how you lead at all level or drive distributed leadership, as we talk about today. So I've created the models and the frameworks to do that. And yeah, it's been successful, but it's all part of that transformation that organizations are going for, as is the second book around open HR.
oh, I love it. I'm so excited to read all of them. And for our listeners, I'll make sure that we have a website or links in the podcast feed as well, so you can check that out yourself. I have one more question, before we wrap up, is I want to talk just about measurement metrics, the capital M word and SMART, the things
Yeah.
that we need. Transformation efforts can be hard to measure. What are some ways that HR and leadership teams can do that they can gauge the impact of change initiatives and their impact on the organizational growth, and let's face it, the bottom line.
Well, this goes back to a point that I made before, that only 1 in 3 transformations succeed. And that's often because the implementation and often because the measures aren't correct that they have in place. That's not just existing measures as far as how we measure progress and accelerate progress, but it's also what are the new measures where we're creating digital value that we can start to track with clients, with our employees, all of those kind of things. So the measurement has to be a fundamental part of the strategy here, and it can't be in retrospect. It must be from day one. So therefore, what the first thing around transformation is to understand is that we can't do this overnight. This is a multi-year potentially journey, depending on where the organization is and where some of the individuals are. So therefore, we look at, well, how do we build a strategy behind that, behind our ambition? Okay, let's, like I said before, make banking joyful. What are
Right.
the component pillars of those? And how will we know we're making progress? And therefore, what are the milestones we built in? And in order to build that in, you chunk it down. So you say, what's the first 30 days looks like? What's the next 90 days? What's the next 90 days look like? All with measures in place, quantitative and qualitative. The emotional measures are really important in this. How people are feeling, what they're thinking, how they're operating off their own back, how they're behaving in the organization, and the impact on customers in the same way, and their reflection of the organization. So you've got the rational measures that you can look at, but also this highly personal measures, which is just so important. So making sure that's in place means that you have to do some analysis up front. No question. So
Right.
let's take technology. What you have to do is you must do an as is analysis with a to be analysis. So the as is, where are we now? Where do we need to be? And therefore, what does that journey look like? And what are the measures in place that we have here? Whether it's systematic process, it's around tech, process, people. That's where we're looking at with the measures there. For the people side, it's that blend of the emotional
Yeah.
element, so that you're getting the voice of the customer externally, the voice of the employee, and the voice of the company loud and clear.
I love it. And I love the way you broke it down into 3 areas, because it's complicated. It's not like just running a sales report. It's very complicated. Why we have these things called humans, and humans are incredibly complicated and emotional beings. And so thank you so much for breaking that down for our listeners. Before we wrap up here, Jeremy Blain, multi-award winning chief executive of Performance Works International. How can our listeners get in touch with you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn and I'm active, very active on LinkedIn. So just look for Jeremy Blain on there. My website is performanceworks.global, and that houses most of what I'm talking about there. And my books are on Amazon and everywhere.
Yeah.
So you're online book, sure. So yes, yeah. So I'll send you the links for that so you can put them in the show notes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This really has been, informative and educational, and it's given me myself a few aha moments throughout that I can pass on to my clients. So I appreciate that. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Stay safe and take care.